So will this Honda Prelude that I just bought be ever worth a chunk of money, like 100,000 bucks? That's the question. Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? So I just got back from the auction and I was able to buy one of my favorite cars. And to be specific, this is a 1992 fourth generation Honda Prelude. Now, as far as why this is one of my favorite cars, well, for starters, I do like the way these fourth generation Honda Preludes look. I like the way they drive and the way they handle as well. But in addition to that, I used to own a Honda Prelude, and that fourth generation Honda Prelude is probably one of the main reasons why I started learning about cars, fixing cars, and all that stuff. Now, it wasn't necessarily for all the right reasons, but we'll get into that later in this video. All right, so let's get to the specifics and what's under the hood of this bad boy. Well, the fourth generation Honda Preludes were made from 1991 to 1996. From 1991 to 1996, you had the option of a 2.3 liter non-VTEC four-cylinder engine, but starting at 1993 to 1996, you could get them with a 2.2 liter VTEC engine. Now, this car, obviously being in 1992, has a 2.3 liter non-VTEC engine, which is a bit of a pity, but nonetheless, these are still pretty good engines, and these cars, even with that engine, are still valued quite a bit of money where I live, here in Southern California. But also, this car makes up for having a non-VTEC engine by having a custom hood prop. Now, I bought this car at an online auction, to be specific, and I couldn't get to see the car in person before I started bidding on it. Now, I could see pictures, and one of the pictures was this site that you see right now. The good thing was that you could zoom in on the pictures, and one worrying sign that you could see was that this radiator is obviously leaking and bad. Now, I say a worrying sign because if you're familiar with these Honda Preludes, you know that if they overheat, they are known to obviously blow the head gasket, warp the cylinder head, but also since the engine block or the cylinder block on these is made out of aluminum being a softer metal, they have a tendency to crack the engine block right in the back of the engine where a pressurized oil gallery is. Now, when you get a crack on your cylinder block where the pressurized oil gallery is, the oil is going to leak from the pressurized oil in your engine block to the coolant system. Even though if the crack is between the pressurized oil gallery and a pressurized, let's say, coolant gallery, you're still going to get oil leaking into the coolant system and not the other way around, because the oil that's inside your engine is usually under 40 psi of pressure and more, whereas the coolant inside your cooling system is right around, depending on your system, let's say 10, 12 psi to 15, 16, 17 psi. And whenever you have a crack between those two systems, you're always going to get oil going from the higher pressure to the lower pressure into your cooling system. And that's exactly what had happened to a Honda Prelude that I bought. Now, the problem is when you blow a head gasket, what you tend to do is to remove the cylinder head, take it to the machine shop, they pressure check it, make sure it doesn't leak, they resurface the deck, maybe do a valve job if you want, and then you get a new head gasket, you put everything back together, you start the car, it runs fine and everything, no misfires, nothing. And that's exactly what happened to the Honda Prelude. That's what I did. But eventually, you're going to remove your radiator cap or check your coolant, and you see milkshake on your radiator cap and inside your cooling system. And when you see that, you're going to suspect, well, of course, I didn't install the head gasket right, or there's a problem with the cylinder head. Now, that's if you're a novice, which I was. So you take the cylinder head off one more time, you take it to the machine shop, recheck everything. Now, with that said, when you have oil inside your cooling system, there's only usually, most of 99+% of the time, two reasons. One is that you have a crack inside your cylinder block. Second reason could be that you have a crack or a damaged oil cooler. Again, that's where oil and pressurized coolant come into contact with one another. If that thing breaks or cracks, you're going to get oil leaking into your cooling system. So of course, we checked the oil cooler on this too. It was fine. So finally, I was able to get the kit from the machine shop, which now thinking back, they should have warned me about this. But anyway, I got the kit back to my house, put it on the cylinder block, made the balloon out of the cylinder block, put pressurized air in there, started spraying soapy water all around, and finally was able to find the crack on the cylinder block. Now, lucky for me, I don't think we have that problem with this engine, at least, because when they overheat to the point where they crack the block, you obviously have a bad head gasket. And when I start this engine, as I'm about to do in a minute, you're gonna hear that this engine runs pretty smooth, no misfires, no signs of a bad head gasket, at least not yet. Yeah, baby. All right, so here's a pro tip. If you go to buy one of these Honda Preludes and you see that the head gasket or the cylinder head has been tampered with, or maybe the head gasket was replaced, and now you want to make sure that there's no crack in the engine block. Now, if you come across a scrupulous or let's say dishonest seller, they'll go and clean the radiator cap, get rid of the milkshake residue, maybe even clean the cooling system. But usually they can't clean the coolant reservoir to a point where you won't be able to see any oil mixed with coolant. So you pull this out and you check this, make sure there is no oil residue or oil mixed with coolant on this. You take a look down there, make sure there's no oil. And as you can see, lucky for me at least, there is no evidence of oil getting inside this cooling system. All right, so let's get to the brass tacks. How much did I pay for this car? And what are my plans for this car for the future? All right, so I got this car at the auction for a really good deal. For 750 bucks with the auction fees and everything, it came out to about 950. I paid 100 bucks to tow it here. So I'm in it for about $1,050. All right, so why so cheap, some of you may ask? Well, for starters, I don't think many buyers were willing to take the risk of this radiator leaking, which they could see in the picture. Non-VTEC engine. Also, the body has seen better days. This fender definitely needs to be replaced. Maybe even this bumper cover. And there are deep scratches all over the paint on this car. Now, one other good thing about this car is the interior, especially the seats. They're in really good shape. They've been redone at some point in the past, not too distant past, and there's no evidence of any tears. No cigarette burns, nothing. But again, on the downside is that this car comes with the automatic transmission, not a manual transmission. And it's got a lot of miles, 199,497 to be exact. All right, so let's get to the real question, which is, in what time frame do you believe that these cars, these Honda Preludes, will ever be worth 100,000? And what are my plans for this specific car? Now, I got this car for next to nothing. I paid, as we talked about, I paid $1,000 for it at the auction to get it here. And I can turn it around and sell this and it'll be gone in a day in its current condition for $2,500, $3,000, no problem. These are pretty hot where I live right now, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm not really into just flipping cars for the sake of making money. I like to add value to them, so I'm gonna do it the hard way, which is I'm gonna fix the body, replace that fender, repaint the whole car, fix any mechanical issues that it may have. Then I'm gonna hang on to it and find a 4th generation Honda Prelude with the VTEC engine and a manual transmission. Buy that, then I will sell this car. And as far as how much I can get for it after I do all the work we just talked about, probably $6,000 to $8,000, I'm hoping. Now, the engine, even though it has high miles on it, these engines are really good engines if you semi-take care of them, don't abuse them. And as you can see, this car has never been modified, which is very common with these 4th generation Honda Preludes. Even the non-VTEC engines, people modify them and they basically ruin them. So it's hard to find one in this shape, even though it has high miles. Oh yeah, and as far as whether these will ever be worth $100,000, yeah, I think in about a 10 to let's say 15 years, they'll definitely be worth $100,000. I sold my Honda Prelude with the VTEC and the manual transmission about 12 years ago or so for $3,500. Same Honda Prelude today would sell about $15,000. Now it has almost 5x in price or in value. At $15,000, you 5 times that, it was $75,000. But I believe as these, as these age and get older and become obviously more vintage and classic, they'll rise in value. So yeah, 10 to 15 years, $100,000 for one of these, I see that no problem. Now, even better than a 4th generation Prelude with the VTEC engine and a manual transmission would be a 4th generation Prelude with a 4-wheel steering system. Yeah, on those you would have a steering gear back here. You would have a control arm to the rear of both of your rear wheels. Yeah, if you can get your hands on one of those, definitely do not hesitate and grab it. Now, the 4-wheel steering system on the Preludes actually started with the 3rd generation Honda Preludes, which started in 1988. Now, if you can get your hands on a clean one of those, go ahead and buy those as well. Those will also appreciate in value, but they're not the same car. They're not as exciting. They don't have the VTEC engine. There was a different type of vehicle. Now, on the other hand, if you can find a 5th generation Honda Prelude, which came standard with the VTEC engine, you can get those as well. Those will also go up in value because there were a lot less of them. I think there was about 58 or 60,000 of them made, the 5th generation Preludes. whereas about 150,000 of the 4th generation Preludes were made. Now obviously there's a lot less of them on the road because they all were heavily modified, especially the ones with the manual transmission and the VTEC engines. But still, the 5th generation Preludes will also go up in value. But in my personal opinion, the 4th generation Preludes with the VTEC engine and the manual transmission will appreciate more because it was the 1st generation Preludes with the VTEC Yo engine. So yeah, this is going to be a future classic, vintage, whatever you want to call it, and these will definitely go up in value. And when you think about it, if you get the right one of these classic or vintage cars, they're definitely a better investment than even buying a house or putting money in the stock market, that's for sure. All right, so if you want to follow me on my journey on fixing the body and painting this car, fixing all the mechanical issues, and then selling it probably in the future, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification. You can also check out these other videos. I'll put links to them on the screen that you can click on. Any of my videos in the description box, they will work as well. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.